Welcome, foolish mortals. Welcome, foolish mortals. I'll be your host. I'll be your host, your YouTube host. Hey everybody, it's Molly with AllEars, and today I'm at the Haunted Mansion bringing you a much requested video. The Haunted Mansion is one of the most popular Disney rides across the globe since it opened in 1969, almost 50 years ago in Disneyland, and it was an opening day attraction here at the Magic Kingdom in 1971. You guys love the Haunted Mansion, it's a cult favorite. Seriously, this attraction's so popular, it's like 10 a.m. and there's already a 45-minute line. Today, I'm going to take you through the queue, through the attraction. I'm going to tell you about the backstory, the history, some of those little details we love. It's going to be great. It's going to be spooky. Are you ready? Follow along if you dare. So Walt actually had the idea for a haunted attraction long before the Haunted Mansion existed. He really wanted to do some kind of attraction with the supernatural and ghosts, but he wasn't quite sure how to do an attraction all about death at the happiest place on Earth. But he brought in his Imagineers, and eventually they came up with the idea for a walk-through wax museum of the supernatural world. Unfortunately, when Walt passed away, they weren't really sure what to do with it, and they kind of lost direction, so the mansion actually stood empty in New Orleans Square in Disneyland for several years. In fact, they put a sign up advertising it as a retirement community for ghosts around the world, and they were welcome to inquire at Ghost Relations. Good one. At the 1964-65 New York's World's Fair, Walt Disney's team had an attraction that would change the course of the Haunted Mansion forever. It was called the Forward Magic Skyway, and it was the predecessor to the Omnimover attraction. Omnimovers are a great style of attraction because it allows the attraction to have a lot of people go through it. It's continuously moving, you can get a lot of guests through it every hour, and you can control what the guests are looking at by angling the doom buggies in the direction you want them to face. Unlike a walk-through wax attraction, you're going to have to decorate every single wall everywhere because people can look everywhere. But if they're in a doom buggy and you're making them look to the right, then you don't have to decorate the left. So they had figured out Omnimovers, but they still had the question of how do we do this mansion? How do we make an attraction about death suitable for the happiest place on Earth? There were two key Imagineers that had ideas for how the Haunted Mansion should work. The first was named Claude Coates. Claude Coates was a former background animator who's responsible for the backgrounds in such classics as Snow White, Peter Pan, and Cinderella. And Claude Coates, well, he had a bit of a dark side, and he thought this should actually be a haunted, scary house with lots of murder and death and calm down, Claude, we're still talking about Disneyland here. The other Imagineer was Mark Davis, a second legendary animator responsible for characters such as Mr. Smee, Tinkerbell, and Maleficent. He had a great sense of humor, and he thought the whole thing should be funny. Lots of sight gags. Anytime you see anything funny in a classic Disney attraction like Pirates, Jungle Cruise, or Mansion, it was probably Mark Davis. They were fighting back and forth. Scary, funny, scary, funny, scary, funny. And eventually another Imagineer, legend has it was Exitensio, was like, that's quite enough. And he shoved the two models together and said, you get half and you get half. We're done here. And that's exactly what happened. When you think about it, the first half of the Haunted Mansion is really scary. You've got the ghost host, you've got the stairs, you've got Madame Leota, all really spooky. That's all Claude. But after Madame Leota, you've got the ballroom scene, you've got the graveyard where the ghosts are literally having a tea party. That's Mark Davis. And they put Mark Davis second because in hopes that any kids that were scared by Claude's half of the mansion, well, they're having fun now. They're not crying anymore after they see Mark's Fun Time Mansion. Right? Guys, parents, no one ever cries, right? So this tombstone is for Francis Xavier, who's actually X Atencio. That's what they called him, X. X Atencio wrote the lyrics for Grim Grinning Ghosts, as well as Yo Ho, Yo Ho, A Pirate's Life for Me, as well as the scripts for both of those attractions. And X had actually never written music before, but Walt just told him, X, I need you to write the lyrics and the music for these songs. He was like, Walt, I don't know how to write music. And Walt said, you'll figure it out. And to be fair, the man came up with the phrase, your cadaverous aura portrayed a power. Your cadaverous power portrayed an aura of foreboding. There we go. You can actually hear Ex Atencio's voice inside the attraction. When you go through, there's a hand coming out of a coffin going, "Let me out, let me out." That's Ex Atencio. Mark Davis was also a chess aficionado and loved to leave little chess jokes at his attractions, such as the pirate skeletons playing chess at Pirates of the Caribbean. And if you look closely at those ornamentations on the top of the mansion, you'll see the king and queen, the bishop, the rook, all the pieces except for one's missing. Can you figure it out? Time's up, it's the knight. And that's because, as Mark stated, it's always night at the Haunted Mansion. Here in the back, you'll see a nod to Harriet on that tombstone. That's Harriet Burns, who is a female Imagineer, and she got her start painting sets at the Mickey Mouse Club. And Walt really liked her work, so he brought her on as an Imagineer, and she did a lot of this small detail work. We're talking sewing the human hair on that pirate's foot at Pirates of the Caribbean. We're talking the tiki birds. In fact, it was Harriet that came up with the idea to use cashmere as the material on their chest because it breathed and flowed. And rumor has it she got that idea from watching Walt speak in a meeting while wearing a cashmere sweater. She noticed how the fabric moved with him on his elbow, thought that would be a perfect fit on the tiki birds so that they looked realistic. Harriet Burns was a true lady of class, and she wore a heels and a skirt every single day, but she was considered an equal among her partners at Wedway Enterprises. Behind me is the tombstone of Master Gracie. Many of you know him as the owner of this house. It is called Gracie Manor, and it's his portrait that you can see hanging when you first enter the mansion, when it turns into a skeleton before your very eyes. Master Gracie is a nod to Yale Gracie, who is the chief Imagineer in charge of special effects at the Haunted Mansion. He revolutionized attractions with some of these very simple yet very clever tricks that still hold up today, almost 50 years later. If you look all the way up to the back, you will see tombstones for Gus, Ezra, and Phineas. Those are the names of the hitchhiking ghosts. Gus, they say, is good luck. Ezra, they say, is bad luck. And Phineas is, I guess, normal luck. This wall has a bunch of people we've got to talk about. The first, Mr. Freeze in the top left corner. That is a nod to Paul Freeze, the voice of the ghost host, hence why it says your voice will carry on the breeze. Paul Freeze also voiced the auctioneer in Pirates of the Caribbean. Next, we will say hello to Ken. Drink a toast to our friend Ken, fill your glass, and don't say when. This is for Ken Anderson, who worked with Harper Goff on the original drawings of the attraction. Ken Anderson was an Imagineer and an animator that was really a jack of all trades and did a lot of different things for many of your favorite Disney movies and attractions. He actually had to stop working on Haunted Mansion because he was drawn to Sleeping Beauty to work on the animated film. While Brother Roland here reposes, his soul above, one supposes. That is for Roland Crump, who went by Rolly, who was an Imagineer who, to put it nicely, was a weirdo. He had an idea for Haunted Mansion that when it was going to be a wax museum, for it to be the Museum of the Weird. And there would be things like a man made out of burning wax, and a one-eyed cat that took you around, and a clock made of human body parts. Well, the clock made it in, but of course a lot of those strange ideas are not part of the Haunted Mansion. But truly, whenever you see something kind of strange, it was probably Rolly Crump. Train made a stain of absent-minded Uncle Blaine. Rest in pieces. That is a good one. This tomb is for Blaine Gibson, a very talented Imagineer and sculptor. He is probably most famous for sculpting the partner statue of Walt and Mickey, which resides in front of the castle, as well as the Sharing the Magic statue of Roy, Walt's brother, and Minnie that sits on the bench near the flagpole. But Blaine Gibson also is a very talented artist who sculpted all the original Ghosts in the Haunted Mansion, all the original presidents in Hall of Presidents, and all the original pirates in Pirates of the Caribbean. Wow. This is for Waypel Rogers. He was known as the godfather of audio animatronics. And here, Fred Joerger, he was a rock star. And by that he mean he did all the iconic rock work at Big Thunder Mountain, Jungle Cruise, and the original Polynesian lobby. So it makes sense that a rock fell on his head. We also have the tombstone for Leota. Oh, he's watching me. This is for Leota Toombs, who was an Imagineer, and they needed a head. Yale Gracie needed a head to work on his idea for Madame Leota. And he was like, hey, Leota Toombs, who, like, let's be honest, had to work on this attraction, right, with that last name. He grabbed her and he asked her to be the model. And they were like, perfect, Leota, you are now going to be the head inside of the crystal ball. And then she went to record her lines, and she talked like this. Not very scary. So they replaced her voice with Eleanor Audley, who voiced Maleficent in Sleeping Beauty, as well as Lady Tremaine in Cinderella. You can hear Leota Toombs' voice, though, at the end of the attraction when you see the baby Leota, and she's saying, hurry back. So the first part of the Haunted Mansion interactive queue is actually a Whodunit game, starting with Uncle Jacob. We know he's first because it reads, Uncle Jacob. Greed was the poison that he swallowed. He went first, the others followed. His killer's face he surely knew. Now to try to discover who killed who. So he went first and he was poisoned, which means we go over to Birdie. Hello, Birdie. He is the poison, avid hunter and expert shot. In the end, that's what he got. Well, coming over to Aunt Florence right here, she is very scary. You can see it says, Aunt Florence, she has the gun, never did a dishonorable deed, yet found face down in canary seed. Well, well, well. The twins, Wellington and Forsythia, or as I like to call them, the evil children from Mary Poppins. Don't they look like evil Jane and Michael Banks? Anyway, they've got the bird there. Departed life while in their beds with identical bumps on their identical heads. Which can only mean, hello, Cousin Maud. She's got the mallet, our sleeping beauty who never awoke the night her dreams went up in smoke. Well, 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 and for the piece de resistance, look in her hair. Can you see that she has matches? Right there. So back in the Victorian era, there weren't a lot of beauty products for us ladies. Not a lot of shampoos, conditioners, hair oils, that sort of thing. So what a lot of women would do to make sure that they didn't smell bad is they would stick matches in their hair and they would light them, and then the smoke fumes, once it went out, would help with the smell as they were doing chores and cleaning and wearing all those many, many layers. But what happens if Aunt Maud forgot to light the match? And then she went to bed with those matches in her hair, and she's tossing and turning and having a nightmare because she just murdered some children, and well, the whole house would go up in flames. Whoops. Here on the organ, you'll actually see it's called Ravenscroft, which is a nod to Thurl Ravenscroft, who we will see again inside the mansion. You'll also see the Raven up top here, who you see a lot throughout the mansion. The Raven was going to be the narrator of the attraction, but then they decided it was better to have the ghost host. But you'll still see the Raven as kind of a guide throughout the mansion. One idea Roland Crump had was for a one-eyed cat to be the guard throughout the mansion, or the guide. Terrifying, right? They didn't go with that idea, obviously, but they kept the cat in here as a nod to Rolly. Here we have Captain Culpeper Klein. That was another idea for the mansion, was for the ghost host to be a dead sea captain. A super cool thing about the Haunted Mansion is that originally the Imagineers didn't come up with a specific story. They wanted you, the writers, to come up with your own tales of what happened in the Haunted Mansion. And none other is as famous as the Ghost Bride. She is up in the attic, and she's murdered all 5 of her husbands. Yikes. But when Haunted Mansion was being under refurbishment, they removed a gate and it left a small metal ring in the ground. People had just come off the attraction and they thought, oh my God, I just saw this bride that killed everybody, and they'd see that small gold metal ring in the ground and they thought it was her wedding ring. So they'd ask cast members about it and they'd make up this long elaborate story that it was the bride's ring, and after she murdered her last husband, she threw it out the window, and it became part of the Haunted Mansion lore. Well, they eventually removed that from the ground, but it had become such a popular story that people would come off the mansion and be like, where's the ring? Where's the bride's ring? So as a tribute to that story that was started by guests and cast members, the Imagineers put an actual engagement ring here in the new interactive queue. here.
How about a snapping dragon?
Where you can help the spirit come up with her rhymes. You'll see it's patented by R.H. Goff. That is for Harper Goff.
Dear.
He drew the first sketches of the mansion.
Is perfect. Oh, poor Myrtle must have been shell-shocked.
You look down at the ground here, you can actually see footprints and paw prints of the gravekeeper that you will see later in the attraction. He is headed up to the cemetery, up these stairs, but as you know, if you've ridden this attraction, he's in for a ghoulish surprise. A super awesome cast member tradition at the Haunted Mansion is that all the mansion names name the bat on top of their headpiece. So next time you're at the mansion, ask a mansion maid what their bat's name is. They may have a whole bat's backstory. Hello there. Does your bat have a name?
Yes, she does.
What's her name?
Her name is Mildred. I named her after my grandmother, who is in regions beyond. However, she is always with me this way. I'm also a little batty anyway.
The Haunted Mansion itself was designed after a Gothic-style manor in the Hudson River Valley of New York. And one really unique thing about the mansion's design, if you look around, there's little men and faces almost everywhere. Check out those little guards up at the top of the awning there. Those look like little guys, creatures that could be guarding it. You'll see bats in the fence, and it's to make the mansion seem ominous. A really interesting thing about the Haunted Mansion is that it's the only attraction worldwide to live in a different land in every Disney park that it resides in. Of course, here in Disney World, it's in Liberty Square. In Disneyland, it's in New Orleans Square. In Disneyland Paris, it's called Phantom Manor, and it's in Frontierland. In Hong Kong Disneyland, it's got its own land called Mystic Point, and it's called Mystic Manor. And somehow in Tokyo Disney, it's in Fantasyland. Here's just a fun couple games if you have a minute. See you later. Dust to dust. Ashes to ashes. Empty tomb. Get it? Love you, Trudy. I truly do. Hallucination. Apparition. Clairvoyance. LOL to all of these. Ouija board. I am a spook. When you exit the mansion, look at the pet cemetery behind me. And if you look towards the back, you're going to see a familiar face. That's right, it's Mr. Toad. When Mr. Toad's Wild Ride closed to make way for the mini adventures of Winnie the Pooh, he found a new home here in the pet cemetery. Sad, sad, cruel joke by the Imagineers. And it's rumored that his tombstone reads, "Here lies Toad, sad but true, not nearly as marketable as Winnie the Pooh."
Lights flicker where the air is deathly still. That is the time when ghosts are present, practicing their terror with ghoulish delight.
A question we get a lot is the stretch room actually stretching? Or is it an elevator? Or how does it work? Well, in Disneyland, it's not stretching. It is an elevator. The Haunted Mansion was built after the park, and the train already went around the entire park. So they had to figure out how to get you underneath the train tracks and into a show building behind the Haunted Mansion. So you go in an elevator down under the train tracks, and then you're in the show building. However, in Walt Disney World, Haunted Mansion was part of the plan the entire time. It's an opening day attraction. The train tracks are far beyond the mansion. But people love that stretch room, so they had to figure out a way to actually make it stretch. The ceiling actually rises. So when you're in the stretch room, hang back. Don't leave right away, and you can actually hear the gargoyles whispering, "Stay together, stay together." It's very creepy.
There's always my way.
And now for the story of Constance, our killer bride. So of course you've seen Constance before. You can see her in the attic, and she marries 5 different men who mysteriously all die. Interesting. But a cool few things to notice about Constance. In each of her paintings, she has a set of pearls, and each husband she kills, she gets another set of pearls. So by the end, she's got 5 beautiful pearl necklaces around her neck. Also in the attic scene, anytime there's a his and hers set of, say, wine goblets or a his and hers cake topper, the his either is knocked over or is missing a head. Yikes. You can also see Constance at the very beginning of the attraction in the stretch room. One of the portraits is of an old lady holding a rose, wearing 5 pearl necklaces, sitting on the tombstone for a husband named George with an axe in his head. One of my favorite legends of the Haunted Mansion is that we're dead now. Legend has it that the bride sees us and she knows we know what she's done, so she throws us out the window. That's why if you look at the house as you're going backwards into the graveyard, the window's actually open. And then that's why the gravedigger is so scared of us. He's seen these other ghosts before, but he's never seen you. The ballroom scene is done using an effect called Pepper's Ghost, which I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's annoyingly simple, and you can Google it if you really want to know how. Or you can go on the Walt Disney Marceline to Magic Kingdom tour, which I used to give, and you can go backstage and see the Haunted Mansion ballroom scene in real life, and so you can see it for yourself. I will tell you for Pepper's Ghost that there are giant panels of glass that had to be inserted into the Haunted Mansion, and they had to be airlifted in and the roof put on after them. Also in Disneyland, you may have noticed that there's giant spiders on the wall in the ballroom scene. That's because many, many years ago, a kid brought in a BB gun because he wanted to duel with his favorite ghost, the dueling ghost up at the top of the ballroom scene, and he shot his BB gun, shattered the glass, and because that piece of glass is so big and hard to replace, they just put spiders on it. Creative. Oh, one last thing. Just because your friends and family and loved ones love the Haunted Mansion and it's their favorite attraction, and maybe they made a joke about really becoming the 1000th ghost, don't bring their ashes here. People legit do this. They scatter their friends and family members' ashes in the Haunted Mansion, and you know what happens? The attraction stops, it gets shut down, and they get vacuumed up in a special ashes vacuum cleaner. So, this has been your PSA. Do not scatter your family members' ashes in the Haunted Mansion. Thank you. Well, that sums up our tour of the Haunted Mansion. There is so much detail, history, and lore about this attraction that it would be impossible to cover it all, but I think we did pretty well. Let us know what you thought and what you learned in the comments. In the meantime, friends, make sure to rate, review, subscribe to our channel, follow us on Instagram at AllEars.net. I hope you had fun today. I sure had a scream. Until next time, friends, I'm Molly, and it's been magical and spooky. Want to see more of my videos? Click over here. Want to subscribe? You can do that right here. And also, ring that notification bell to make sure you get instantly notified anytime we post a new video. Thanks for following. See you real soon.